So what have I learned about whiskey on this whiskey tour? I have dabbled in whiskey. I do like whiskey, so it's not completely random that I'm here, but I'm by no means an expert. I've only done one previous distilleries tour, and that was in Dublin at the Jameson Distillery. So here in Scotland, what I've learned is that there's 3 ingredients that make whiskey, and that is barley, yeast, and water. And then they go into these barrels, and the barrels are actually what give it all of its flavor and its color. So when the spirit goes into the barrels, it's completely clear, and depending on what the barrel was previously used for, so a lot of the ones that they use here in Scotch whiskey were previous American oak bourbon barrels. So there's a law in the US that bourbon barrels can only be used one time, so then they sell them over here and they're used for whiskey, and they can be used 3-4 times. Now we're in the Speyside region of Scotland, so the whiskeys here are very light and fruity and grassy. You're not gonna find smoky whiskey here. So the smoky whiskeys come from like the western part of the country, because they char their barrels with peat, which is natural to the habitat there, more like in western Scotland. The charring, the smoke, is what gives it that smoky flavor. But they don't do that here in Speyside. They take the barrels and they don't char them, so it just brings out the bourbon taste that was previously used. Now, it's not exclusively bourbon, it's not exclusively American oak. They do also use some European wood barrels. They also use wine barrels or cherry port barrels, and so it really changes the flavor of all the whiskeys. And then to be considered a whiskey, which I did not know this, which I guess if you're a whiskey fan you would, but to be considered a whiskey, it has to be in the barrel, aged in a barrel for at least 3 years and 1 day. So obviously you find whiskeys that are like 12 year, 15 year, 20 year, whatever. So that just means that's the length of time it aged in the barrel. But to be a whiskey, it has to be in the barrel for at least 3 years and 1 day. I mean, those are just the very, very basics of whiskey that I have learned. We've done a lot of tours. We've tasted a lot of whiskey, some good, some not so good. Today we were at where am I right now? Today we were at Dalwhinnie, which means the meeting place in Gaelic, and this was hands down my favorite one. You got chocolate with your whiskeys. The one thing to be aware of is just book these in advance, especially if you're here in Scotland in the summer. They do fill up quickly. You have to book in advance or you're not going to get in. But I really, really enjoyed not just learning about the spirit in general, but visiting, you know, the newer family-run distilleries, the older ones that were like been around since the 1800s, and then also even the more like corporate ones that have been run. There's basically like 2 companies that own like a billion, a billion, obviously that's exaggeration, but a bunch of these distilleries. Like just here in Speyside, there are 50 distilleries of the 135-ish that are in Scotland in general. So this is a really, really popular area. They're all run a little differently. The stories are all really different. So it has been fun exploring this time period and just learning about the whiskey. So I'm actually gonna go get another one right now.